Tonight I've been doing this series on what does healthy look like. We spend so much time defining what complex trauma does to people as far as making them unhealthy. And everybody needs to understand that, but they get to a point where they go, okay, enough, I get it. Now what does healthy look like and how do I get there? What are tools to get there? So what I've been doing is going through the basic needs that every human being has and going, here's how complex trauma made that need not get met in a healthy way. Here's what people from complex trauma then tried to do to meet that need, but that was usually unhealthy. And then here's what healthy tools are for meeting that need. So tonight we come to part 8 to security. Now it's one of those subjects that a lot of people go, I'm not sure that is a big deal. I'm not sure I've got any issues in that area. Let me say this right up front. If you have complex trauma, you have security issues. And I want to try to define that and help you understand that and help you begin to realize how big of an issue that is in your life and the things that you've done to try to meet that need, but have actually resulted in making your world more insecure. And that is a key piece for people to understand. So I hope I can do that for you tonight. So I want to begin by defining 3 different types of security, okay? Number 1 is security in life in relationship to our external world, our external circumstances. So a person that faces a world that isn't safe, where there's lots of problem, lots of danger, and they don't have the tools or the resources to handle it, they feel very insecure. And they get anxiety. Will I be able to handle this? I don't think I can. And maybe this is going to be too much for me. So there's a type of security that is in relation to having the resources to handle the problems of life. The second type of security is in a relationship with somebody. And in that relationship, you feel secure, which means you feel safe. You feel accepted for who you are. You feel loved and protected. And therefore, you have a sense of security within that relationship. Somebody who's in an abusive relationship doesn't have that sense of security, and they walk around feeling very insecure all the time. The third type is having a sense of security in relationship to yourself and who you are. And that means you accept your basic personality, you accept your body, you accept who you are. An insecure person walks around going, am I too fat? What do people think of me? Are they going to like me? Maybe I'm too shy. Maybe I'm too talkative, blah, blah, blah. And they have tons of insecurity. So insecurity can come in different ways. And that's what you need to understand. So the result, or what insecurity feels like, is anxiety, fear, lots of uncertainty, lots of second guessing, busy brains trying to go around and around because they can't find a solution. And so it's a very uncomfortable thing, lots of negative emotions that are not fun to sit in. And so insecurity can happen at a subconscious level. And you might not even consciously be aware that you're feeling insecure, but it can still be running you. And it can be making you antsy. You can't sit still. You can't focus. You're constantly worrying. And you might not even know why that is happening. So the flip side, what does security feel like? There's a sense of peace that you feel, contentment, a confidence because you're able to deal with the problems of life. You have the tools. And then you are able to be open and vulnerable in relationships because you know you're loved and accepted. So security creates many positive, wonderful emotions Insecurity, the exact opposite. So a couple illustrations of what security is like. So think of having a rock in your life. And pretty well everybody that I talk to that comes out of complex trauma, that's an illustration I use. And when I say you never had a rock in your life, or you had a rock and they left you. And all of a sudden, it's like you're in this quicksand, in the mud, you can't get a firm footing. Everything feels unstable and up in the air. That's insecurity. A rock is what everybody wants to have in their life. Somebody they can go to who helps them regain their footing, who's reliable, who's consistent, who's always there. Another illustration is a safe harbor. So a child can have a lot of storms out on the ocean, but as long as they got a safe harbor where it's calm, called home, that they can come home to, then they can handle the storms out there. But we all need that safe harbor that we can come home to. And then a fortress. So we can deal with conflict and wars and battles out there, but we need a place of protection. A place where the walls are thick and safe and keep us safe from all the enemies out there. So those are all good illustrations of security. Two that I especially like are the roots of a tree. So what I like about that is if a tree is a healthy tree, the roots go down deep. And they go down to water so that it's able to withstand drought and all kinds of difficult seasons. And they are also able to withstand storms because the roots keep it stable as the wind blows it and buffets it about. Tremendous illustration of security. But what I want you to understand about roots is the thing that makes a tree secure is invisible to the human eye. It is in a hidden place. And what I want you to realize is that in the human dimension, a lot of the things that will give us true security aren't visible to the human eye. They're in a secret or a hidden part of us, tapping into resources that aren't visible to others. And then the other illustration is the keel of a boat. So if you have a sailboat and it didn't have this keel, which was a weighted thing that goes deep down into the water below the hull of the boat, if you didn't have that and the wind came along, sailboats would just tip over left and right. But the keel is what gives it stability, what enables it to withstand the strong winds in a storm and that the waves don't overturn it. And the same thing, the keel is not the part of the boat that makes it fancy. The keel is not what makes it look good to other people. It is a hidden part that gives it its stability. And so that is an important concept when we think of security, is there might be hidden pieces that the average person isn't aware of. So those are illustrations. Now let me show you how this is supposed to develop in a child normally if they're growing up in a healthy home. How does a child gain a healthy sense of security? How does the security need get met for a child growing up in a healthy home? So number one, a child comes into the world with zero skills to handle problems and stress. So the only way they're going to feel secure is if mom and dad teach them the tools and protect them from the dangerous world, because they don't have that ability as a young child. So mom and dad have to be their fortress that they can run to for protection, and mom and dad have to be teaching them tools. But in order to do that, mom and dad have to provide a consistent, safe place. It's not good if home is safe on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but it's dangerous the rest of the week. A child to feel secure needs a safe place every day of the week. And mom and dad are the ones that have to create that environment, not just by rules, but by them being safe, consistent people. And so that is what creates the security. So then they teach the child, but as the child goes up, they start using their tools, but they're still going to have circumstances that they don't yet have the tools for. And they need to have mom and dad be a rock, and they can run to them, and mom and dad will be there for them every time and teach them the tools. So there has to be a dependability that the parents provide that is there whatever the child runs into. And then the parents have to consistently meet the child's 12 basic needs. And as the child gets those needs met, they feel safe, they feel cared for, and they learn how to meet those needs for themselves. So the parents then are the main sources of creating security in a child. They provide the environment, they teach the tools, they provide the love and acceptance for the child. They make a safe place, and they're there all the time. So that is what a child needs. So what I want you to understand is this. Parents, bottom line, need to love and accept their child totally. It does no good to say to your child, I love you, and then nag them about something in their personality you don't like, or make fun of something in their personality or body, because your words, I love you, no longer mean anything to them, because they don't feel the love and acceptance. And so providing a secure place for a child goes more than just words, more than just rules. It's attitudes. It's that love that's unconditional and gives acceptance. So then, as the child grows, they begin to internalize that. So let me give you an example. A child, when they're really, really small, they don't feel abandoned as long as they can see you. So they need you in the same room. But what you realize as a parent is, I hope this doesn't last forever, because I can't walk with them everywhere in life. So what you then do as a parent is you go to the next room, the child starts to fuss, and you come back into the room, and they begin to realize, I might not be able to see mom, but if I call, she'll be there. And so they begin to realize that to be out of sight does not mean abandoned, because they're still reliable if I need them. So then when they go to kindergarten, they get a little nervous, because now they're going to be away from mom and not even in the same house. But then when they come home from school that night, guess who's there to meet them? Mom. And they realize, okay, so they internalize mom's presence. So even though she's physically not with me, she is with me. And I can go into the world with that awareness. So that is what begins to create the security. It starts with mom's presence, but then they internalize it, and mom is now a rock that even though I can't see them, I know they're still there. And that creates the security for the child. So let me translate this now to a child. What does a child need in order to feel secure? They need all the things I just described, but I want to take it 2 steps further. They need to connect with you. And that means they need an emotional attachment, an emotional bond where they feel totally loved, safe, and accepted. And that is what creates the internalization process, is that connection. Secondly, they need to trust you. Trust creates that internalization process. So I can have mom out of the room, but I trust she's still there because she's proven it over time that she's reliable. So trust and connection. And guess what addiction and complex trauma mess up when it comes to parenting? Children don't feel connected, and children aren't sure they can trust. And so the very things that create security, addiction, and complex trauma destroy. And so part of recovery for you, if you have children, is rebuilding the trust and connection and creating that safety so that they can begin to develop a healthy sense of security. And that you don't do overnight. You didn't destroy their trust overnight. Don't expect to come in and say to them, I'm sober now, you can trust me again. They're going to, prove it. That you're going to stay sober through all kinds of difficult circumstances, then we'll start trusting you again. So that is the challenge that you have. So once they've got all of that, once they get into their teens, they're ready to start facing the world without you because they've internalized tools, they've internalized your love, your reliability, and now they can go out and face the world. And that is how it was designed to develop within a child. And I think for some of you, you can see that logically. What many of you realize is that you've never experienced it yourself, and that hurts. But you also realize you've done some damage with your children in this very important need, and that's going to need some attention and some patching up. So one of the things that you can look for when a child feels insecure is they don't feel they can be authentic with you. They feel that they have to earn your love by wearing masks, by pleasing you, but they can't be real. And that is a danger warning sign that insecurity is starting to take root in a child's life. So let me go on to then complex trauma and security. So we've kind of touched on it, but I just want to quickly summarize it for you. Complex trauma destroys security on all kinds of levels. Number one, with complex trauma, part of what complex trauma is you don't have consistent, secure attachment with caregivers. Either they're away, neglectful, abandon you, angry, and you can't connect. And so you feel the insecurity of facing problems alone. Then, many of you grew up in complex trauma that had a violence or an abuse type of atmosphere, and you didn't get a safe harbor environment. Many of you never felt totally loved and accepted. And because of that, you never felt secure around your parents. And you had lots of insecurities. Many of you grew up with parents who were physically present but not emotionally available. And that creates lack of security. Some of you had parents who were great as long as they're sober, but if they relapse, they were gone for a while. You didn't get consistent safety, consistent needs being met. And then some of you grew up where the boundaries were changing all the time. So some weeks the boundaries were great and you felt safe. Next week the boundaries were all over the place and you weren't sure what to expect on that day. Some of you, without realizing it, have developed a radar as to how safe home was that night. So as soon as Dad came in the door, your radar picked up. Is Dad angry tonight? Is Dad impatient tonight? Is Dad giving off a vibe tonight that is not safe? And your whole insecurities kicked in. And so the need to feel security, what I want you to see, is so great that children will develop radars to detect whether they have it or not. And some develop very sophisticated radars. So if that's the case, and you've been through all of the ones I just mentioned, I hope you realize now that, wow, this security need was never really met. Okay, so let me take you to the next piece. Nobody wants to live in insecurity. It creates all these unpleasant emotions that we don't want to sit in. So a child at a subconscious level from a very young age is going to begin to try and create a sense of security. So I've got about 16 things here that children can do. You can check off the ones that you've done. Some of them you might still be doing today. But here's what I want you to see up front. For each of these things, they seem to help for a bit, but they've actually made life worse. And they've actually destroyed relationships, and they make for terrible parents. Okay? So the first thing a child does when nothing's secure, it feels like nobody's in control. Bingo, solution, let's be a control freak. If I can control every detail of my life and everybody else's life around me, then I should feel secure. The problem with that, it might seem like it works, but not everybody wants to cooperate with your control agenda. And so you end up with troubles there. Some people that came out of a lot of poverty, where they felt insecurity because they didn't know if they were going to get clothes or food because of the poverty, their solution is, I need lots of money in the bank. Then I can face any financial problem. And so they become workaholics. They're stashing money away, hoarding money, all of those things, trying to create a sense of security. So there's value in saving, but I hope you can see that you can take that too far, trying to meet the security need. Another common one is, I should never become totally committed to anything. I always need an escape hatch. So if I get into something and something bad happens and nobody's going to be there to help me and I don't have the tools to handle it, I need an escape hatch. So never commit to anything, because then you'll keep yourself safe. And that many of you have done. Another one that is very common, and some of you might have grown up with this and not even realized your parents were doing it, but when you live in an insecure world where nothing is safe, nothing secure, the brain says, let's develop a very rigid way of thinking. Black, white, no gray, my way, highway. And therefore, my security comes from a rigid set of beliefs. And the problem with that is I'm only willing to look at things one way. I'm not willing to look at it from any other angle. So if my children challenge me, it's my way or the highway. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not open to listening to anybody else. And so you think you're creating security by that black and white world, but you're doing tremendous damage to those underneath you. And so a lot of you grew up with that. Now, some people will rationalize that approach by this. They go, I am proud of being a black and white rigid thinker because I am a no compromise person. And their thinking is, if I ever allow any gray, I might make a compromise. So let's say I'm really spiritual, mature, because I'm a no compromise person. And that's how they justify a rigid world with no gray. And again, does a lot of damage. And sadly, a lot of those people find their way into churches. Next one, you get people who are detail crazy. So let me give you an example. Let's say you meet somebody and they're working with you on a project. And you've never done this project before. And they're blowing up your phone with texts. What about this? What about this? Has somebody covered this? Somebody covered that? Somebody covered that? And then they're phoning you and they got to talk through every possible million little details. Why? Because they're trying to make sure nothing happens that they weren't expecting where they might have got hurt. So if I can get every detail, then I can control what happens and the outcome. And that is a common thing. Another one, in order to be secure and nobody's protecting me, I have to protect myself, which means I got to be hyper alert to danger. So I have to constantly be on the lookout. The problem with that is you begin looking for negative. And then you develop a negative focus. And guess what? If you're looking for negative, you're going to find it. And pretty soon, nothing's good in your mind because you are determined to find negative. Another one, the child says, if I do everything perfect, then I'll be secure. So I will become a perfectionist. And I will be this perfect person to make my world secure. And then I will require those that I'm in a relationship with to be perfect as well. And that puts too much strain on relationships. The next one, some, without even realizing it, go into magic thinking or superstitions or OCD. So the person that says, I have to check this so many times, why are they saying that? Because if I check it the right number of times, I'll be safe. If I don't check it the right number of times, I might get hurt. So they're trying to create security through doing certain compulsive actions, or I just need a magical formula. And so if I just do this magical little ritual every time, then I'll be clean and sober this time perfectly, or my world will be safe. And so you develop this magical thinking, superstitious approach. And then become a people pleaser. So if I please everybody, nobody will be mad at me. Therefore, nobody will make my world unsafe. So I better please everybody. Some of you have tried that. Some of you go, why try any of this? The way to not get hurt is don't try anything. So let's just isolate into my safe little cocoon and create security within the four walls of my little house. And some have tried to do that. And then some have said, I'll get somebody else to keep me safe. So mom and dad wouldn't keep me safe. I'm going to fall in love with somebody who will keep me safe. And guess what? You end up marrying your mom or dad. And then they don't like you acting like a kid. And you don't like them acting like your mom or dad. Okay? Others, whenever you face a responsibility that creates anxiety or insecurity, you go, who can I phone to get them to do it for me? And you recruit all your supports to do the stuff that you're afraid to do. And if they do it, then they keep you from ever growing up. And you stay stuck in insecurity. It seems to solve it, but it actually makes it worse. And then there's some people that go to the extreme of saying, who needs security? I thrive on danger. I'm a chaosaholic. And they try to make that a point of pride. Meanwhile, they're full of fear inside. They just try to act super tough. We're almost done. If you're discouraged, we're almost done. The extreme way of trying to stay safe is when the brain can't come up with a solution that is doable, it will disassociate from reality. It will disconnect you in your brain from what is happening here and now. So you could be being severely abused, but you're on the ceiling watching it like it's happening to somebody else. And that is a very severe thing. But what can happen for some people without realizing it is they develop a way of creating security called a fantasy world. So when things are feeling out of control, they escape to their secure fantasy world to protect themselves. Now, all of that, I don't know how many of those you checked off, but some of you, there's quite a few of you nodding. But there's one other piece that I want you to see with this, okay? What you don't anticipate with complex trauma is that your brain is being trained to approach life a certain way. So you end up trying to create security without realizing what's happening in your brain. And what's happening in your brain is, in order to protect you from danger, it starts to have to jump to worst case scenario whenever anything happens. So somebody doesn't answer your text, what do you go? They're cheating on me. All of a sudden, your little secure world just blew up. Not their fault, your brain. And so complex trauma, you try to create security, but you defeat it at the same time. That's what I want you to see. And I also want you to see that every one of those things I listed might have seemed to help for a bit, but I hope you realize those don't really work. They might seem to work, but they destroy relationships big time. So what then are positive things we can do? And I just want to give you the main components of security tonight. I would say in my own life that I'm able to meet 95 to 98% of my needs. I've learned the tools, I've learned how to deal with life, and I have that security based on that. But no matter how many tools I have, no matter how healthy or mature I might be, there still will be times when I need a rock. And so every person still needs their rock person. And that can be your higher power. That can be a reliable person who's stood by you in your life that is still there for you to go to when you can't handle it on your own. So you still need a rock, though you need to learn the tools to handle life. Not running to get everybody else to fix your problems, but learning how to do it yourself. Now, what I have found over the years is people from complex trauma love learning the tools. They just aren't good at applying the tools. And applying the tools is where the rubber meets the road. So that's what you have to do, not just learn them, but apply them when your fear is triggered and your insecurity is triggered. The next thing, you have to learn I have to accept this situation, or what is this that I need to apply tools and change? Because there's some things I can't change no matter how hard I try, and I'm going to wear myself out trying to do that. I need to learn to accept it. And then the final thing, there's still a lot of value in creating a safe environment for yourself, for your kids. Now, do you know part of a safe environment is a predictable, consistent routine and structure? So let me say that another way, in case you didn't get where I'm going here. You guess what security comes from? Boring routine. Boring, safe curriculum every day. And so you can't continue to be drawn into chaos and creating drama. You have to provide that consistent routine.